I was meeting with Jim Glenn this morning. He was very complimentary of you.
Oh, I'm surprised. I gave him such a hard time. Did you really?
Well, he's telling me about it.
I really give him a hard time.
About the parliamentary procedure, he said that, but he was saying how she's on great health early.
Oh, well, that's how great he is. He is a wonderful human being.
Yeah.
I love to work with him, but I love to give him a hard time. I was doing it again Tuesday night. He was making for the parliamentary procedure, and I said, that's not right. I said, no, and he's not like yes,
He said you were from Roanoke one time or something.
Waynesboro.
So they were all the shenanigans went on. Is it Waynesboro? From Roanoke.
Yeah, we went about 7:30. So my husband and I are both neighbors to each other. So we stayed there, 50 years, and we had aspired to be retired. So when the market went down, we started looking at.
Except you didn't retire, you got out.
I never.
That was good, wasn't it?
Good afternoon, call the meeting to order. And at this time, I will ask for everyone to introduce themselves, starting at the table and then going around the room. So I'm Phil North, Chair of the Roanoke Valley-Alleghany Regional Commission.
I'm Steve Clinton, Roanoke County Board of Supervisors.
David Radford, Roanoke County Board of Supervisors.
Dean Martin, Roanoke County.
Laurie Smith, Franklin County.
Chris Whitlow, Franklin County.
Pete Peters, Town of Benton.
Brad Gross, Town of Benton.
Stephanie Moon Reynolds, City of Roanoke.
Barbara Dirk, City of Roanoke.
Peter Boston, City of Roanoke.
Dawn Erdman, City of Roanoke. Dee King, City of Salem.
Jim Wallace, City of Salem.
Virginia Marlowe, the Regional Commission.
At the Jeremy Holmes Regional Commission. We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And over here.
Rebecca Myers, Senator Tim Kaine's office. And Elder Sandra Downey, Senator Tim Kaine's office.
Chuck Unruh, Town Clifton Forward.
Sherry Dean, Regional Commission.
Eddie Wells, Regional Commission.
Amanda McGee with the Regional Commission. Robin Bruns, Regional Commission. Elizabeth Almore with the Regional Commission.
All right, welcome everybody on this rainy afternoon. I'm glad we had a quorum today. With all the rain we've had, I certainly understand if some people couldn't make it, but with that said, we'll move on to item number 2, approval of consent agenda items. A, approval of agenda. B, the minutes on pages 3 through 32. And financial reports under item C, ending May 31, 2023, on pages 32 through 35. Are there any changes to any of these items at this time?
Mr. Chair, we would like to amend the agenda. I did offer my mea culpa. I've been working with Dr. Stanko Downey for months to try to get her on the agenda, and when I did that, I immediately forgot to tell Virginia to put her on the agenda, so my apologies. But we would like to amend the agenda to add item 4A, presentation from Elder Stanko Downey in Tim Kaine's office. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here with you.
Thank you. At this time, would we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended by Jeremy, and also item B and C, the minutes as well as the financial reports?
I will.
Okay, second. seconded by Mr. Ratchford. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And stands approved. All right, on the chair remarks today, we are live streaming our meeting as usual on the Commission's Facebook page, part of our ongoing effort to improve public awareness of the important work undertaken by the Roanoke Valley-Alleghany Regional Commission. We want to remind everyone watching they are always welcome to address the Commission via one of our public hearings or in person during the public comment period at each meeting. I'm also pleased to announce that the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority has recommended funding in the amount of $500,000 to support Roanoke Valley Collective Response, the first tranche of funding that will cover the operation of the program for the next 5 years. This is in addition to $252,000 recommended for the City of Roanoke programs. The VOAA, which is the Opioid Abatement Authority Board, will vote tomorrow at 3 o'clock, June 23rd. The meeting is a public meeting online, held virtually, and if you're interested in attending, please reach out to Jeremy Holmes for information on getting connected via Zoom. Meanwhile, collective response staff are preparing for the next round of grants in October. If your locality is interested in seeking a local grant or pursuing a cooperative regional project, please contact Collective Response Director Robert Natt for information, receiving technical support, and project development assistance through the Commission. And Jeremy, I might ask that you send out Robert's contact information to everyone just as a reminder of this statement I just read.
So we can do that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Under appointments, every 3 years, the Commission appoints a liaison member to the Roanoke Valley Transportation Planning Organization to represent the full Commission. Mr. Lee Osborne, citizen member representing Roanoke County, currently serves in that role, and he has offered to continue representing the Commission on the TPO. Before we move to a vote to confirm Mr. Osborne, I want to ask if there's any other additional nominations from the floor. Going once, going twice, there being none, we'll go ahead and place Mr. Osborne's name into nomination. Can I have a motion from the floor for Lee Osborne?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and the motion carries. Meeting cancellation and Red Sox. Boy, I guess that's two good pieces of news right there. Like the next one, you get to do something else. So I want to remind commissioners there'll be no July meeting at 3 o'clock of the Regional Commission due to summer vacation schedules. Finally, the commission will host our annual Red Sox game on August 9th at 7 p.m. Watch for registration information from Virginia Mullen in the coming weeks. And thanks as always to the City of Salem for hosting this event and having us over there, and I look forward to a great home game. Oh, by the way, if this gets rained out, I guess we get a notice from Virginia that afternoon and reschedule it. Is that the way it works in Virginia?
I think so. Well, there's no rescheduling. And if it's canceled, it's canceled.
I see.
Yes, because it's very hard to get in the Salem box, so, yes. But
What do
let's
you
cross our fingers that it's not.
Sure.
Yes.
No problem. With the rain we have this summer, you never know.
Phil will come to your house if it's canceled.
Actually, Jeremy's gonna be cooking hot dogs out here.
Yeah.
And, so there you go. Thank you, Salem, for hosting that
We'll
event.
make sure Parks and Rec holds the rain that day. We've got a direct
No
connection
problem.
over there, so.
No problem. Got an indoor stadium over there. You got a roof. All righty, so, that takes care of the chairman's remarks, and we'll move on to the executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to share that the end of the fiscal year here means, amongst other things, employee evaluation, which is one of the things that's kept me busy and I forget to put it on commission agenda. But I want to take a moment to remark on a couple of milestones for several folks of our staff here. Unfortunately, some of them are out on vacation or elsewhere today, so they're going to be recognized in absentia. But first of all, Gabriel Itagrai, who you might have worked with on a number of water quality or Chesapeake Bay items, he has received a promotion to Regional Planner 2 to recognize the work he's been doing, particularly with Roanoke County on the septic pump out program and finding funding and managing that project. He's been doing a lot of work bringing additional programs on board and a lot of field work, doing rain barrel lessons and working with school kids and community groups up in the Highlands. And we're really excited to see how he's developed. He started, you might remember, in the middle of COVID, so for a little while it was Gabriel, Eddie, and Wayne were the only ones in the office, and most of us did not meet Gabriel for about 6 months after he started. So we're really excited to see his continued improvement and the additional programs he's brought on board. Along with that, Amanda McGee, who's our senior planner, was promoted the senior planner last year, is going to be taking on additional management responsibilities within the community development department. Amanda is one of our leadership track staff, and we're really excited to see her grow into that leadership position. And so she's going to be working directly with Gabriel and Robin on helping them develop and ground additional programs. And I want to recognize Amanda for her hard work. And you'll see some of that at the end of today's commission meeting with her staff report. And then finally, Brian Hill, who you at the TPO heard him present, he is entering his 10th year here at the commission in this coming year. He spends about half of his time in transportation and the other half of his time in housing. You might know he led the PDC housing development program, the $2 million we got from Virginia Housing to bring some affordable housing on board in the region. He developed that program from scratch. And then the other half of his time, he works in the TPO doing all the federal regulatory stuff. So he's a jack of all trades, and we're excited to see him, his continued time here. So I just wanted to take a moment to recognize these folks who we wouldn't get anything done, certainly if it was up to me, just me alone, without all the hard work and the creativity and energy of our staff. So doing the employee evaluations is actually an exciting time for me because I get to have committed time to tell everyone what a great job they've done. And I hope our board sees and recognizes that as well. So thank you for that, and that's all for me, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 4A, agenda as amended. The chair and the commission recognize Elda Tanko Downey of Senator Kane's office, who's going to give us an update and some good news, we hope. You do have good news, don't you?
Absolutely. I've got money news, which is always good.
All right.
Good afternoon, Harvard, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, Mr. Holmes, and everybody. Good to be back with you. It feels like it was just, I actually said aye during a vote, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can't vote anymore. I'm not on the commission anymore. It's so good to see everyone. Thank you for having us today. Thank you for amending the agenda to allow us to share some updates with you. I also do want to give a shout out to Amanda, because many years ago, well, not that, she's very young, not that long ago, Amanda was actually my student at College University. And as a professor, when you hear news of your students succeeding and moving on into great career situations, it's always a moment of pride. So congratulations, Amanda. All right, so we put together for you a couple of updates. I wanted to there are so many things to share with you, and we don't want to take up your whole afternoon and evening. So we cherry-picked a few things that have come out really in the last 2 or 3 weeks to share with you. And so we're going to go through some of implementation updates and some of the new laws and acts, some opportunities that are open with these laws and acts, and then a couple of items that we're working on right now. Senator King right now is in the meetings for the NDAA approval, and so it's sort of fresh off the press, if you will. So our first slide, please. Thank you. Is implementation update on the bipartisan infrastructure law. And these slides are filled with information with the idea that if any of this is of interest to you, Jeremy and Virginia would kindly print these out for you, but I'm not going to read everything for you, just give you kind of like a few highlights. So we wanted to point out the $135 million to reduce emissions across America's industrial sector. And in the past 2 weeks, UVA, which is sort of out of Harvard's region, but part of our office in Roanoke's region, received funding for decarbonizing chemicals. So we wanted to highlight what the higher ed institutions are receiving from the BIL. Really, the decarbonizing chemicals is beyond my scope of comprehension. It really goes into scientific, but it's for energy efficiency and to reduce carbon printing. So very interesting work that they're doing at UVA with this funding. Next slide, please. Closer to home, 43 million investment to advance innovation in wood products and wood energy economics, and Virginia Tech received 2 funding opportunities from the 43 million investment to maximize hardwood utilization and use mass timber utilization as well. So we're looking forward to seeing those projects develop. Next slide, please. Another implementation update with the bipartisan infrastructure law. And here we start looking at available opportunities that are open. So this is funding grants that our office is very happy to give you letters of support. Should you be applying for any of these grants, we're happy to bring money back to this region. And the first one is 192 million to advance battery recycling technology, and so it's investment in research and development. At the bottom, I put 3 of the opportunities for money that are available through this 192 million. One is consumer electronics battery recycling. The other is advanced battery R&D consortium opportunities. And finally, a lithium-ion battery recycling price, which is not a grant, but really a price in that area of research and development. And all of these, as I'm going through, any of these that you are interested in, we're more than happy to provide in-depth information on the grant and the opportunity and all the deadlines, and of course the seminars that are being offered to apply for these grants. The next opportunity that I want to highlight is 930 million to expand and strengthen America's high-speed internet networks. This is really neat because we've had a number of applications from more rural areas to take advantage of these grants. One of them is Internet for All, which is 65 billion connected to the same BIL investment to expand affordable and reliable high-speed internet access in communities, especially rural communities. So 2 that I want to highlight for you are the NTIA high-speed internet grant programs and the FCC's affordable connectivity program. Through our office, we've handled at least 3 applications for the second one for the affordable connectivity program. It's a very easy application. They're not too complicated from what I have seen, and they're really a good opportunity if you have in your regions areas that you are still trying to get that fiber up and get more homes connected. Next slide, please. Here is a really interesting one. It's 45 million to improve energy efficiency for nonprofit buildings. So this is looking at only 501c3 organizations who need to improve their buildings where they're located. I have a number of places just in Roanoke City that could benefit from this grant opportunity. And it has to be as long as the building is owned and operated by that entity. So not if it's a rented entity, of course it cannot happen, but if it's owned, and it's a lot of going into green energy options as well for these remodelings for nonprofit buildings. Next one, please. You see, I think you are happy. I'm talking about all this money that is available, and we're happy to support you in acquiring these fundings. Next comes the CHIPS Act, and a couple of weeks ago, Becca and I had a great meeting with Jeremy and John Hall to talk about CHIPS and the opportunities that we see in Virginia and our region for CHIPS applications. I think that's an ongoing conversation and one that Senator Warner's office is actually spearheading. The update on CHIPS is that the Treasury Department has gone ahead and with the investment tax credit guidance for the CHIPS Act made it much more clear so that there is investors have certainty around the kind of tax credits that they will be receiving, and it's clear rules of how this works. It was a little kind of muddy at first, but now that has been made very clear in hopes that the applications and the opportunity itself are a lot more straightforward for those interested. Next one, please. Next is the Inflation Reduction Act. We wanted to highlight 500 million for improved regional conservation partnerships programs to better support partners and producers, and this is through USDA, which of course is a big interest for our region. And this is, this one is pretty broad, so it's really to look at conservation efforts that are public-private enterprises, so to speak. And so farmers, ranchers, foresters, and it's really not vague, but really broad. So this one is, if there's something in your region that would benefit from a public-private partnership to look at conservation, this would be a really great opportunity. And the next one, this is the Qualifying Advanced Energy Project Credit Program, which is a renewal and expansion of a tax credit from 2009, and it provides incentives for clean energy manufacturing. And again, these are all tied to some of the technology and some of the things that we're seeing in the region that we thought would be of interest to the group. So that is it for implementation updates. This was really to show to you what is being done through all these acts that have an impact in our region, including projects that are already underway. The next slide. These are the bills that Senator Kane has introduced recently within the past, I would say, 3 weeks. The first one that he introduced just this week is Supporting Teaching and Learning Through Better Data Act. And what it is basically is legislation to help address teacher workforce shortages, which is a problem that we're seeing across the Commonwealth and of course across the nation. And it's using data collection that already is in place, using it in more efficient ways to understand where the problems are, where the holes are in these pipelines, and how to better address them. And of course, there's a grant program to help state agencies as well. Next slide. This is one of our favorite ones right now. It's the Jobs Act, jumpstarting our businesses by supporting students. And what it is, it's a bipartisan act to make sure that Pell Grants are also eligible for CTE, not just for 2- and 4-year colleges, but for CTE. And we've shared this a lot with Roanoke County in some of our conversations, but this is a bill that we're really excited about and hope that it gets a lot more support and makes it through, because it really would expand the opportunity for Pell Grant funding for everyone, not just for folks attending 2- and 4-year colleges. And the next slide, please. Okay, another set of bills we're looking at is health workforce packages. And this is a number of bills that are focused on rural health workforce and direct care workforce. We've been doing some work in pretty much far southwest, helping get some monies down there for the rural health workforce. Some of it actually long COVID clinics that are popping up in deep southwest. Another thing that the senator is emphasizing is working to get internationally educated healthcare professionals that are already living in the US, helping them get quickly connected with jobs. So taking advantage of people who are in the country, who have the expertise, helping them get connected to jobs so that we can fill a lot of open positions. And next one, please. Appropriations bills. I think this is probably on some of your mind, what is happening with our CDS applications. Sadly, there are no news to report, but we are working through the process, and hopefully we'll have an update within the next month on the outcome of those. And our final update is on the National Defense Authorization Act, which is meetings happening right now as we speak. And Senator King is the chair of the Senate Subcommittee on Sea Power, and so he is working to pass a bill that really addresses Virginia's military priorities. And I think that has been part of other conversations we've had in the region of how to bring some of that wealth with defense that's out in Virginia Beach and on the coast, parts of that into this area in terms of training and manufacturing as well. And our last slide, just reminding you who our boss is, just in case, and our contact information there. Happy to answer any questions or, again, provide more information on those grant opportunities and guide you through that process. And of course, supply good letters of support to make sure we get good investments in the region. So thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much, Elna, for that update. And by the way, Jeremy, can you share that before the next meeting so that all of us can take it back and see if we can use some of that information? And if so, we can reach out to Elna if we have any questions.
Yes, and Mr. Herb, I wanted to just point out, as I said, this is not exhaustive. I would say on a weekly basis, we get at least 10 to 15 updates on that BIL, Inflation Reduction Act. So a lot of opportunities that are coming up. And if you are interested also in knowing what is already coming to the region, besides the UVA and DT ones that I pointed out, happy to share that as well. So thank you.
Yeah, the broadband is of interest to some of us as well, I'm sure. That's what caught my attention. But we do appreciate that update. And any questions for Dr. Elna Stenko Downey from Senator King's office about any of this information? Okay. I look forward to getting that copy. Thank you, Jeremy, for that. And thank you, Dr. Downey, for attending today. And by the way, don't be shy. Come back and give us an update in 2 or 3 months. 3 months if something changes significantly, we need to know about it.
Absolutely. I was telling Jeremy that the reason we had not been able to come was this time of the month, every month, we were just like, the senator's coming to the region. We're like, we can't do anything. So as long as the senator doesn't invade us during the time of the month that you have meetings, happy to be back here with you all.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda is item number 5, pages 36 through 38 of your package, adoption of proposed fiscal year 24 RVARC budget. If you look over those pages in your package, there's a summary report that tells you about the changes in revenues and expenses, kind of outlines the highlights, if you will. And then on page 38, there is the budget itself that shows revenues and expenses. So there you go. Take a minute and look that over. If you have any questions, we'll go ahead and get those answered and/or make a motion to accept the budget as proposed. I will say there is one item on there that I did learn about concerning the audit. We've budgeted $3,900 more for the audit, and than we normally do. Normally that audit costs about $12,100, and we did that, if I'm correct, because it may be, we may move into a federal audit. Is that correct?
We may reach the $750,000 in federal funds that requires the single audit to happen.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question on the expenses. I'd asked Jeremy Holmes this earlier, the building maintenance, 36 to 40,000 increase. Is that going into reserves for, or is that going to actually be used?
We budgeted that to be used.
To be, okay.
Yeah, over the course of the year.
So
yes.
we really don't have a reserve.
Yeah, we currently don't have a separate building reserve. That's, we've had conversations about having a capital improvement program or some other way of setting money aside for that. We don't do that at the moment. We've got a bit of a plan for understanding what's coming up. But usually we work within, have been able to work within that budget for building maintenance and repairs and improvements over the course of the year.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 24 budget beginning July 1st.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries by unanimous voice vote. Item 6, 2023 nominating committee report is contained in your package on page 39. The chair recognizes the chair of the nominating committee, Mayor Rose from Denver.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly appreciate the folks that volunteered to work on the nominating committee. I imagine a couple of them have probably blocked my telephone number from their phones. But they're very cooperative folks. Our committee consisted of Billy Martin, Lori Smith, Stephanie Moon Reynolds, and of course our chairman Phil North was a member of the committee, and I was the chair. Let me say we were very fortunate this time in that we had some great candidates, and I'm very excited about the future of this organization based upon the quality of candidates we had, the people that were anxious to serve. So it was really quite an encouraging time. So our slate of officers, as you probably have noticed in the minutes, for chair, Mr. Jim Wallace from Salem, and vice chair, Mrs. Lori Smith. Those would be the two folks that we need to elect for chair and vice chair. And of course, the two people for the appointed positions, the treasurer, Mr. Dean Martin, and secretary, Mr. Jeremy Holmes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Gross. At this time, are there any other additional nominations for the chair and vice chair position from the floor today? Okay, going once, going twice.
Come on. I was gonna say, come on, people.
Jim, please, let's not encourage that.
Jim, we should run.
Yeah, we told you we'd help. All right, with that said, I'll entertain a voice vote, a motion to approve those that have been nominated, and a second, and then a voice vote.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, on the appointment of the treasury and secretary, I've recommended that Dean Martin remain our treasurer, as he served so dedicatedly in the past, and Jeremy as our secretary. And with that said, do I have a motion that we accept those names and a second?
I make that motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. I would just like to congratulate Jim Wallace. He put up a valiant defense, but was overruled by the current chair. And I said, he said, well, what, you're doing a good job, you can stay on. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard that before. That's great, and I appreciate that, Jim. But, you know, City of Salem needs to lead a little bit here, and this would be a great opportunity. And we said we'd help you along the way if you need any help, and we're always there. And of course, you'll be head of our executive committee, and we'll be meeting on a monthly basis to help out any issues you have. And you got a good vice chair over there, Lori. You know, she'll be glad to go. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. North. I'm going to have to purchase some more socks to kind of be able to fill out your shoes, but
Well, I'm glad you didn't say pair of shoes. They're pretty expensive. Anyway, everything will be good. And so welcome on board, and those positions take effect at what, the November, December meeting?
At the October annual meeting, we will officially pass the gavel.
Yeah, okay, and then the next meeting will be what, December?
Yes,
You have one?
the summer meeting will be the first, the new officers
Okay.
preside.
And I'm not going too far, I'll be in the second committee, so congratulations, and thank you for stepping up to serve. We appreciate the diversity of our membership, and I think we've got some very talented people. Okay, moving on to item number 7, annual update of the Roanoke Regional Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. Chair recognizes Eddie Wells. You know, when I first got on the commission, I'm like, well, what is this economic development strategy? And it was a huge document. And there was projects galore there. I mean, it was just endless spreadsheets, which I think has changed a bit. But you gotta have this, or else we can't apply for any federal grants. And so there you go. Tell us about it, Eddie.
Thank you, Chairman North. Yes, Mr. North was on SEDS committee for a couple of years. He moved on. Mike Stovall was our chair this past year. Mike has stepped down due to some family obligations, so we will also be looking for a new chair. Volunteers, someone in this room, maybe, I don't know, if people are interested, so that's going to be open.
Don't you have any members on the committee that might be interested?
We do. Paul Mahoney has been vice chair for a couple of years now. Paul has graciously ran the last couple of meetings this year as we met around various regional localities this year hosted. One was actually the Workforce Development Board. Alleghany County and Covington hosted our second meeting, and then Botetourt hosted our meeting in March, or May, rather. But yeah, we may be contacting some people about that. Next slide, Elizabeth. If you're not familiar with the SEDS, it is a U.S. Economic Development Administration planning activity that's required for our designation as an economic development district. We were designated in 2017 after a considerable amount of work. Our previous director, Wayne Strickland, and John Hull, when John worked here before he was at the partnership, helped move that along. The designation gives us more opportunities to apply for federal funding and work with some of our other federal partners, such as HUD, EPA, Federal Highways, people like that. It does have a bit of an impact on some of the other applications that go in, everything from social services to smart scale applications. You know, everyone's sort of localities submit applications and say, well, there's an economic impact to this project, or we're in another economic development plan. Usually the SEDS document is what they look toward to see if that really is an economic development project. I also have to mention Franklin County, Boonesville, Rocky Mount are covered by West Piedmont PDC. West Piedmont's been doing this a little bit longer than we have. Good program down there too. Again, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, says acronym. In order to qualify for EDA projects, the project has to either be listed in that extensive spreadsheet that Mr. North just mentioned, or it needs to fit into one of the overall goals of the SEDS document. So we've got 9 different categories of goals, each with probably 5 to 10 strategies under it. We can squeeze in a lot of different types of projects. So it's revised every 5 years with an annual update. We're doing an annual update this year. That's basically just some demographics, project listing update. So there's not a whole lot of changes in it this year. Our next big update will be 2025. So we'll be working on this one for a couple more years. Next slide. Some of the EDA investments so far. There's a few of them in our region. Valley Innovation Council, really through RAMP here in downtown Roanoke, has received funding. City of Roanoke actually got funding for the Deschutes project, the road extension, so that as part of the site preparation. Allegheny County was one of the first recipients of EDA's COVID tourism funds a couple of years ago. So unusual to see an economic development agency funding a transportation and trail project. Franklin County's got money for Summit View Business Park in the past, so EDA is making investments for that. We're thankful to Senator Kane and Senator Warner's office on helping with that. They were also part of getting our EDD off the ground early on. We had meetings up in the Highlands and at some other locations, and that was good. With the regional priorities, there are 7 overall priorities that the committee set 2 years ago. Again, these are really broad. I mean, expanding broadband, implementation of the recommendations in the housing studies, site development, additional flights, runway capacity at the airport, things like that. That the committee felt were really regional projects and needed to be included, and many of them combined several projects. Those haven't changed this year. Proposed projects, a lot of things are ongoing. We pulled from local economic development plans, VDOT plans, things like that. Look at other funding sources. EDA doesn't like to be the only person sitting at the table when you're talking about funding. So of course we look at CDBG, transportation project funding, DEDP, Community Economic Development Partnership for some of the site development work. Again, no changes to that regional priorities list this year. Projects that were added since the initial public review was advertised. Each year, EDA requires a 30-day public review, which starts middle of May, ends middle of June. There were 4 this year, 2 related to the airport. As many of you know, they are in the process of wrapping up their master plan right now. Still a little uncomfortable committing to things since they haven't adopted their plan yet. But we put some general items in the SEDS that includes realignment of aviation drive and also the runway extension and related improvements. I mean, that's one of the things that's sort of really still in the planning stages right now, and it's going to be the localities, FAA, VDOT, likely several other funding sources to get that done. City of Roanoke, We met with them and EDA to talk about the in-river park, that's sort of the kayak play park. I think the city has money budgeted for that. It would be nice if we could get an equal amount from EDA to do more for that project. That discussion is still sort of ongoing. Blacksburg Innovation Network, this MH talent programming. Many of you know Aaron Bertram that works with Verge out of Blacksburg and was previously in this area. They're looking at doing sort of training and I guess a sort of pipeline for new employees to make sure that we can meet the growing need for high-tech employees. So those four have been added just to make sure that they're actually eligible for project funding, and those are all actually active too. I think the Roanoke Blacksburg Innovation Network application has already been submitted, so it should be going through the process right now. I think that's the last slide. If you may have any questions, I know the SEDS document is a lot of data to pour through. Before you get to that spreadsheet of the goals and objectives, one of the other things we're going to be working on this year, I guess one of the things that Jeremy's came back with from going to the NATO meetings in CERTI and things like that, we're going to be doing a website for the SEDS, hopefully sort of interactive, more user-friendly, something where if you want to dig through all the data, you can, but if you don't want to, you can go straight to the projects and just get the data that you really need. So that's one of the things we're going to be working on this year. Any questions on the documents, the process?
Any questions for anyone else on the SEDS? If not, thank you very much, committee. And at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Have there been any speakers signed up to speak today, or is anyone online that would like to speak?
We have not received any requests for speakers today, no, Mr. Chair.
Okay. That said, then we will close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion under item 7C to approve the SEDS as found on page 41 of your package. Is there a motion to approve the SEDS report by resolution? We have a motion from Mr. Olson, second. Second over here from Dean, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, approval of the Roanoke River Blue Way Advisory Committee bylaws amendment. Amanda McGee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. North. So you have in your packet a staff report as well as a copy of the bylaws that are proposed for the Roanoke River Blue Way Advisory Committee. This committee was first formed in 2014. We've been meeting regularly since then. I came on in 2016, and we've worked on a lot of different projects. I have spoken before several of the locality boards as well about this over the years, coming out and reporting out on some of those projects. Most recently, we are working towards a redesign of the Blue Way brochure, which you may have seen out in the hallway in your coming to goings from the office. And as well, we have been working towards getting signage put up at our access points. So there's been a lot of really great progress. We also helped to fund through the monies that the Blue Way Advisory Committee works with every year, $10,000 towards the Wayside Park access improvements that just have kind of officially opened this year. So that money is provided by the city of Roanoke, Roanoke County, the town of Benton, and the city of Salem. And it's about $11,491 a year. And over the years, we have kind of rolled over every year a little bit extra, so we have a good amount in the bank currently. And we want to make sure through these bylaws and through a formalization of this process that we have clear accountability for how that money is spent, and that is a direct avenue for people to be able to communicate back up to you as well. So, any questions about the current membership that is listed in the staff report of the current active members, or any aspects of the bylaws?
Any questions for Amanda? Any comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the bylaws.
So moved.
Is there a second? And we have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes. Amanda, thank you for that update and getting those bylaws up
Thank
to
you.
snuff. Next up is Amanda on item number 9, annual update of the 2022. Annual update of the 2022 trail and greenway counts. Amanda, take it away.
Yes. Get our presentation up here. So I do this update for y'all every year. We'll also be updating the Greenway Commission next week usually. We try to do it all about the same time. And I think I have the clicker, so just FYI. So this update will look predominantly at 2022 data. We do have, we have been doing the current methodology for counter reports is that when we have missing data, we do adjusted average daily traffic. This helps reduce errors. So we've been using that methodology since 2020, so I will refer back to some of the older data throughout the report, but mostly in the PowerPoint, you're gonna see 2022 data. Data is collected through a combination of infrared and magnetic counter devices. Predominantly, the data we're looking at in this report is infrared. There are about 26 locations that we collected data at through the year of 2022. So lots of data to go through at the end of the year. In the past, we have used this data, and your local staff have used this data to support grant applications, to identify needed projects and places where maybe there are improvements needed on a facility, to guide maintenance funding and staffing allocations. So this data can have a lot of applications in our Greenway and Trail network. We'll talk a little bit more about that in detail for a couple of these locations, but it is a very important source for staff, and we have seen it as being a very popular program. Okay, so we're gonna start with the Appalachian Trail. I do want to apologize, all my titles are cut off, so. Yeah, so this is the Appalachian Trail, and we're looking at averages over the months of the year, and then I've got some other information there for you. So our adjusted average daily traffic at this location was 195.59 counts. That is not necessarily individual users, right? Because this is an up and back trail, the predominance of users are daily kind of folks hiking to the top and coming back down, right? But we worked with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. I'm gonna step back slightly, I feel like I'm overwhelming this mic. We worked with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and the Roanoke Appalachian Trail Club to come up with a little bit of math that lets us estimate at a kind of approximate user count at this area. So for that number for this year, we saw 41,050 users estimated. So it could be a little bit above that, a little bit below that, but we're right in that 41,000 ballpark. This is a little bit more Then we saw last year's approximation we had some missing data last year, was about 40,300. So a little bit of a jump, not too significant year to year. So we're seeing pretty steady traffic from year to year at this location. We did see that this year, one of the reasons I like to show the month of the year at this location is because it's a little surprising, I think, for some folks. We see a really sharp peak in the spring. I think this is when everybody's stir crazy and they're ready to go out and they want to go climb the mountain, right? And then we see a really, really sharp peak in October. And I don't think it's going to surprise anybody. This is leaf traffic. These are leaf peepers. They're going up there to see all the changing colors. This is a very popular spot for it. Our maximum counts at this location in 2020, which is the highest we've ever recorded, was 1,890 trips of the counter. So even if you divide that in half, that's still 900 people potentially in this corridor. So that's a lot of people on a unimproved surface trail, right? Like dirt surface trail. This data is really important to collect at this location because it has been used in several big projects recently that have brought funding to the region and could bring future funding to the region. So I want to mention those. Shout out to specifically the visitor use management plan work by the NPS. They use this data to support making that argument to the NPS that we needed a visitor use management plan for the Triple Crown area. That project is wrapping up. Public input will be in August for the kind of final round of public input. I believe it's the 14th and 15th. So I'm very excited for us to be finally wrapping that up because it's been a long process. We also have worked with other partners with this data, supported the 311 bridge project to get the pedestrian bridge over 311. That project, I believe, is going to construction in the next year or so. So we should be seeing some really exciting improvements up there. And then we have the Mackinac shuttle that is being operated by Roanoke County. That project also used this data to get funding in for that pilot project, and we're hopeful that there will be more funding that comes in with that project as well. And then in the future, there's planned parking lot improvements at this location that this data will support. So as you can see, this is a really good case study for how many different ways you can use trail count data to support different kinds of projects. And of course, the visitor use management plan will also have implications to how the ATC and NPS staff are managing and volunteers are managing visitor use in this area. Maybe it died. All right, next slide. We were going well there. But, there we go. All right, so in terms of some of our locally owned and operated facilities, the first place that we always think of when we think about greenways and trails in our area is the Roanoke River Greenway. And specifically, most of us probably think of River's Edge, which is the area right outside of Roanoke Memorial Hospital. That is, there's no accident there. That's our highest traffic location in the region. 928 counts a day on average in 2022. So the last year's was a little bit higher, about 970 average counts. 2020 was a little bit lower. You'll remember you've been here for a couple of years, that in 2020, the river's edge, like kind of area of the Roanoke River Greenway, and a good chunk of the Roanoke River Greenway was closed in the city. So that did drive some of that traffic variation, we think. Lower numbers this year probably reflect a little bit of a lull as things maybe move back to normal from the pandemic. We don't know for sure because there is a lot of yearly variation depending on weather. So we'll have to kind of watch and see if this remains a trend. So on these graphs, we have kind of a proportional graph that shows you of these 6 locations that are listed at the bottom. For those in the back who maybe can't see, those include River's Edge, Bennington, 17th Street, Green Hill Park, Moyers, and West Salem, not in any particular order, unfortunately. About half of the traffic we're seeing across all those locations is at River's Edge. That's not really a surprise. One of the key takeaways from that is really just the density of development in that corridor and the types of facilities that draw people. So, you know, there's a lot of parks really on that corridor, Wasena Park, Smith Park, that bring people in to use the park. There's Roanoke Memorial Hospital that's bringing people, you know, where there's commuting traffic along the Roanoke River. And also we have several Blueway access points in that corridor. So there's a lot of things driving that traffic. We also see on this chart on the right, we also see Memorial Bridge. That count location is actually a different count program historically. This is an eco counter that's provided by VDOT, and then a Zelt loop that's also provided by VDOT, that's built into the sidewalk and pavement in that right across Memorial Avenue, right before you hit the bridge coming from the Grandin side. So luckily we're able to kind of parse out data depending on which part of the loop people hit. So that gives us some really interesting data to look at. Before we look at that, I do want to mention that the maximum recorded traffic at River's Edge, we did have 2,401 counts on June 5th of 2022, and as near as I could tell, that's probably Ironman. So that is a huge traffic driver to this facility. So next slide. So the Memorial Bridge location, I wanted to show you just a little bit more of the detailed data that we have because we have both an infrared counter and a Zelt loop there. So we can take that, which also, you know, infrared is also called pyro for for clarification. So we can take that infrared count number, and then we can subtract out the Zelt loop, which is the bike here, and we can get a remainder that's the walking traffic, and then we can kind of see what that percentage looks like. And so across 2022, averaged across the year, is about 60-40 percentage. A little under 40% for bikes and a little over 60% for walkers, which is an interesting this data point. We do have detail where we could look at patterns at this location. I haven't done that dive yet, but essentially I would expect that that ratio changes throughout the year depending on weather, particularly. Next slide. Okay, I've gone the wrong way in my powerful spreadsheet. There we go. At Carvin's Cove, this slide looks at the 4 Carvin's Cove count locations within the cove, and also looks at 2 locations of trails that are managed and operated by Roanoke County that connect directly to Carvin's Cove. So these facilities are a little bit different, but you're probably seeing a lot of the same users, right, that are coming into Carvin's Cove coming out of Carbons Cove. So, those are, Tinker Creek, Collins University. If you're familiar with that trail, that's just north of Collins University. It connects in, to the back of the cove. And then, Henchy Trail, which is a newer facility on, off of the roundabout of 311. So kind of in that area. So, all right, so we can see here, the other thing I want to point out about this slide before I move into the graph, which is the fun part, is that the Carbons Cove location shows a higher count than any of the other locations, but I approach that with caution because that location is actually in the middle of the Carbons Cove Trail Network. So you're counting people who are coming in and out at one of these access places, right? So some people, you can sort of leave right by that counter and get on a road there, but it's not an official access. It comes into kind of like a private drive area at the end of a public road. Some people do leave there, that's why the counter's there, but it's also catching people who are just kind of moving through that space. So with that said, there's some interesting patterns looking at the days of the week across Carbons Cove this year that we haven't necessarily seen as strongly in previous years. At Ratlin Run, which is at the Bennett Springs parking lot across the street, we saw really strong spikes on Wednesday and Thursday. We also saw like
they have rides then on
right.
Wednesday and Thursday.
Right. So there is there are rides. There's potentially trail maintenance people coming in and out too as well. So that that is kind of a new thing that we're seeing in Carbons Cove and that we've seen in the past couple of years, where we're seeing really strong, like right after work peaks in the middle of the week, or just peaks in the middle of the week across all our averages that are actually stronger than the weekend peaks. So I think one of the things that could be driving this is more flexible work schedules for folks, because we did not see it as much pre-pandemic. Also, but we still do see those really strong weekend peaks at Timberview and at Fort Gorge, which is the main kind of exit off of the Bennett Springs parking lot. So there's still a lot of weekend traffic at this location. Next slide. We did have some sad news at Explore Park this year, because a lot of the Explore Park counters unfortunately did not, they had technical issues this year. I mentioned, I think this is a good time to talk about why we have data gaps. There could be a lot of different issues. We can have aging equipment, that's an issue over time. You could have weather impacts, different things that cause failures. So we did see, unfortunately, a lot of the counters out at Explore Park in the year 2022 did fail. So the two places where we had enough data that I felt comfortable making adjustments and assumptions about it were the Explore Park mountain bike and the Explore Park Roanoke River pedestrian count locations. And so I have included those for reference. Both of these are adjusted, and they were adjusted using Carbons Cove data because it's kind of a somewhat similar facility. Next slide. We also have our Franklin County Trail Program, which is some of our newer counter locations. I think looking at these trails next to each other is kind of interesting because they're all such different facilities. If you look at Smith Mountain Lake, for example, the location where that has been in place in 2022 was on a trail that led to kind of some hidden cove beach areas in the woods And so a lot of people kind of going down there just to get to that little hidden beach and hanging out and coming back, right? So that count location has been moved. So we may see a real difference in counts on the trails that are not necessarily moving towards hanging out at that beach. And we actually moved that because of vandalism, not because we weren't interested in that data. But unfortunately, because people were hanging out on the beach, probably having a few beers or whatever people do on the beach, they did decide to attack my counter box with a hammer, so we had to move it. In contrast, you have Summit View Business Park. This is really kind of a standalone facility. The farmer's market is there, but for most of the week, this is just a loop, and people will drive to it and just walk around, and there's not a whole lot else going on. But even every time I'm out there checking it, there's somebody walking around the loop, you know? So that's really interesting to see that really strong traffic there. It indicates to me that there's a real demand for recreational facilities in that part of the county. Then we have Wade Park Cinder Surface, another loop cinder trail, but as you can see, the counts here are much higher. This comes back to that co-location theme. Wade Park Cinder Trail goes around a soccer field. And so there's a lot of folks who come out and like maybe their kids come out and they're playing soccer after school and they're walking this track, right? So it's also a popular track for the kinds of folks who are just walking like at Summit View, but I think that is driving that traffic up above what you see at the Summit View location. And there's also several events that occur throughout the year in Wade Park, so that probably also affects that information. The single track in the back, the way that counter is set up is it's set up specifically to catch folks who are going to a specific unimproved surface trail that is designed for mountain bike skills development. So it's not, it's a very targeted population. A lot of folks aren't super comfortable on a mountain bike. So I think that that's probably why you see somewhat lower numbers at this location. It's just because it's a subset of the population that you're working with. Okay, moving on to our other cinder surface trails. We do have several linear cinder surface trails in the network. These include Hanging Rock, Jackson River, Murray Run, which is kind of like a hybrid cinder and unimproved surface, and then Wolf Creek. The counter locations in both Murray Run and Wolf Creek's corridors are located in a park. Wolf Creek is located, their count there is located in Good Park. These are very high numbers. They are very high numbers despite the fact that there's some question about where the current counter is, if it's counting everybody that's going by that particular choke point because it only points one way, right? And people might choose to go around the pole on the other side because of just where it's located. So we can safely say that Wolf Creek and Good Park is very popular, and that Good Park itself is quite popular. Unfortunately, because of the location where we cannot necessarily make assumptions about the extent of Wolf Creek once you get out of the park. And so that's something to keep in mind about where count locations are. It's why I like to point out where they are to help you understand the data you're looking at, because maybe speaking to totally different groups of people and different sections of the trail, as was brought up in the TPO meeting, have different maintenance needs potentially. So we think of our corridors as being, we think of Wolf Creek as being one facility, but different sections of Wolf Creek might have totally different maintenance needs. So that's a good example of that. But yeah, all of these are more linear. We do know that we have some maintenance needs at Hanging Rock. So that I will be excited to see if that affects data once those are addressed. Yeah, so, oh, it worked this time. So the last thing I want to leave you with is a point about emerging technologies. This is a question I received a couple of times this year, and that is about large data sources or large databases like Strava and Streetlight. So if you have worked on the transportation side, you've probably heard of Streetlight at some point. Strava, if you're a cyclist, you've heard of Strava probably. It's an app. So these are apps. Well, Strava is an app, and Streetlight is kind of a large data source. It's not like a specific app that you download on your phone, but where they're farming that data back out from telecommunications companies, right? So the data is driven by your phone, and it tracks where you're going when you're using different modes of travel. And it does this, Streetlight does this geographically, and also by speed. Presumably, if you're going 60 miles an hour, you're not on a bike, we hope. So, so the question is, with these emerging technologies, where does that leave our counter program? So the existing research right now indicates that we need both data sources to create a full picture of bike and ped traffic in our region, because especially in low traffic areas, the count data on the ground is more accurate, and you can use it to kind of adjust these big data sets, and then use the big data set adjustment to create like a bigger picture without having as much many commitments for permanent locations on the ground. So if it works, it worked. Good job. So lastly, we do have some places in the network where we still need on-the-ground validation, and I'm hopeful that's something that we can work towards next year. Destinations, I just want to reiterate, are a big driver of traffic on our trail networks, and development density can also be a factor. Generally, if it's a more dense area, you're going to see more foot traffic on your trail, with the exception of destination spaces like McAfee, where people are going specifically to go there, right? So just some takeaways to keep in mind when you're thinking about trails in your areas. Any questions?
Any questions for Amanda?
At the earlier TO meeting, we talked about traffic congestion, and with multi-use, the Roanoke River Greenway is meeting some of that congestion needs, mitigation. And some of that can be by adding curb cuts. Some of it is, I encourage the dog walkers to walk the dogs on the grass. Leave more asphalt for us, and we might even think about widening the trail sometime.
Yeah, I think, Barbara, that's there's a good point there, in that when we are looking at this data, one of the things that it can help us with is that question of, do we need facilities improvements to deal with this level of traffic? Are there places where, you know, are there strategies we can use to help handle that traffic? And that's, the data can't tell us exactly what those strategies are, right? But it can tell us there's a problem and raise a flag and let us argue for those strategies. So.
I know that we're going to be opening the gap between the two parts of the Roanoke River Greenway.
Yes.
Are y'all going to be taking numbers in that area so we can see that?
Yes, so the 17th Street count location is on this side of Bridge Street. And then we actually, John, who is not here, has an eco counter that he's put up on Aerial Way. And so we should have some indication between those data points where we can make some assumptions about how that affects traffic. I will caveat that currently there is no, currently the 17th Street counter is not out there because it was full of termites. And so, I haven't gotten back out there to replace it, and that's gonna be a project for, the next fiscal year, unfortunately, so, yeah.
Okay, just a couple comments, I think a good couple of points that were made. The use of this data, specifically the Appalachian Trail data on slide 3, was useful in the ERPT application for Roanoke County for the Valley-Alleghany Knob shuttle, and also for the parking lot improvements, I think that are being paid for by the federal government and the funding from the Department of Interior. So this data is useful in your application, so if any of you in this region have any use for this data, by all means, think about how you can use it to get grants to improve your facilities, like Franklin County's, or Salem's, or Roanoke River Greenways, or what have you, because if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. And this data can be used as a man that can make sure you get the latest for your applications. In fact, they even help you on the applications if you need here in the regional commission. So there you go. Any more questions for Amanda? If not, let's go on to other business. Anything else that we have before the commission? Any other business someone want to mention? Jeremy? Anything? Okay. All right. Certainly want to thank Dr. Stanko Daddy for coming and bringing us that presentation, and we'll see what we can do with some of that information. Your phone might start ringing by next week, so.
That's why I put the email address in that phone.
No, we like to reach out and have that conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
No, that's true.
Email,
Emails
in
just-
person, we
yeah.
love coffee, we love coming out and supporting your small businesses, especially
Okay.
food businesses, so.
Thank you.
That's good as well.
Thank you. All right, any other business? If none? Okay, Barbara.
Oh,
what you
Mr.
got?
Chair, I'd like to, I know the commission's not meeting in July, but perhaps instead of meeting here, we can meet at the ribbon cutting for the Roanoke River Greenway. That's gonna be on July 28th. And I know Roanoke City's had some mayor's bike rides before, and so if there's people in Salem or Roanoke County or city or Benton that would like to ride their bicycles to this ribbon cutting, I've given you at least a month's notice that you can practice up on your skills.
They take longer than that.
Thank you for that month's notice, and we may need to practice up on that. If you have an email or grab something up, Jeremy, you can get that out if you want to fashion something and send to him.
Fantastic, thank you. Love to see you all there.
Good idea. You won't give us a month off, Barbara, that's what I like about it. Always be either in person or on site. Other commission comments on item 11, commission members and or the public, anything? Okay, and don't forget those other items. The regional meeting is canceled in July, but we'll have a baseball game to go to on August 9th, and there'll be more information from Virginia to all of us about that. And then, there being no further comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we stand in adjournment, thank you. Be safe.